Hello and welcome to this Wednesday edition of our Fireside Chat. So glad that you've joined us today. And it's a beautiful, warm, but not as warm as it has been, August day. We had a lot of wind yesterday, and but we've all survived it. And so glad you're here today. We're talking about going through challenging times, and boy, we sure are in them. And we talked yesterday out of First Peter, the book of Peter, the letters of Peter were actually written to believers to get them through very difficult times. Now, what they were going through was not a pandemic like we're going through, but they were going through persecution, where literally their goods were taken from them. They were prohibited from meeting for church, which we have had that. And they were being persecuted. Some of them were being executed, martyred. So there was a lot of pressure on them. And it's interesting, to look at how well we're handling this pressure compared to the kind of pressure they went through. And they stayed strong. And this is what Peter's writing these letters to them for several purposes. One of them is to keep them strong and focused, and the other is to help them to be alert, to be sober, not sober in the sense you're not drinking, although there's a really kind of an application of that, because if you've been drinking, and which I assume you've not been, but what happens is your senses become dull, and you become overconfident in some cases. Everything gets out of proportion, and that's what happens. We get lulled into that, with our senses become spiritually dull, and we get lulled into being overconfident. But sober means I'm alert, I'm in my right senses, I understand the circumstances we're in, and I'm taking it seriously. And that's what Peter's telling them to do. He said, therefore, gird up the loins of your mind. This is in verse 13. And be sober. He's not saying don't drink, although he probably was saying that. And rest your hope fully upon the grace that is to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ, as obedient children, not conforming yourself to your former lust, as you did in ignorance, but as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in your conduct, because it is written, be holy, for I am holy. So we looked at yesterday, Peter talks just before that about understanding that the testing of your faith, and that's what these things are doing. I don't believe for a moment God sent them, but he will use them to show and reveal where our faith is. And the genuineness, the testing of the genuineness of our faith, Peter said, is more precious than gold. But that's not how we often look at it, because we don't understand how precious our faith is, what it will do for us, not just to provide for us here, but our faith is, if you read Hebrews, the chapter 11 of Hebrews, it's what gets us through all the things we have to go through, so that we finish our course with joy, and we finish what we've been put here to do. And the journey along the way is filled with joy, it's filled with peace, even though we go through difficult times. And we're not shaken, because we've learned to walk by faith and not by sight. So Peter says here, now gird up the loins of your mind. So he's talking about how you think. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. Gird up the loins of your mind. Begin to think soberly according to what God's word has said, not according to CNN or Fox News or Facebook or your people that have befriended you or have unfriended you or whatever. According to what God has said about this. We have to learn to look at what God has said. Be sober, and this is what he's saying, rest your hope fully on the grace that's to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. So my hope is not in the medical profession and in our scientific professions that's going to come up with an answer to this pandemic. It'd be wonderful if they do. I am, in one sense, hoping they do, wishing they do. But my hope, which keeps me solid, the Bible talks about hope is the anchor for your soul. It keeps you from drifting. You may go around in different circles, but it keeps you from drifting. A number of years ago, I had a boat with one of my kids, and when we would go out on the bay here, you'd throw the anchor out, so either you're going to fish or sit, and with the changing of tides and the wind, the boat would move around, but that anchor kept it in the same spot. It may change, it may look in a different direction, it may go up and down with the tide, but the anchor held it firm. And the Bible calls hope the anchor of our soul. In fact, the flag for Rhode Island, the symbol from Rhode Island, is an anchor, and it says hope. So it's got to be coming right out of the Bible. Isn't that interesting? So, but the hope that is the anchor to our soul is not that circumstances are going to change for us. I hope they do, but the hope of my life, what keeps me steady, which keeps me focused, It cannot be that hope. It has to be the hope of the final finality of the fulfillment of our salvation when Christ comes back for us. So this is a good time to check yourself. Is that my hope? Is that what I'm looking forward to? Or am I looking forward to just get through today? Am I looking forward for when I can go back to whatever it is I used to go back and what is your hope in today? What are you looking for? Or do you not have any hope? Because you need hope desperately. Without hope, we give up. There's nothing for our faith to apply to. So it's a good place to check on today. What's my hope in? Is my hope in my family, my spouse? Is my hope in the government? Then you're going to be disappointed ultimately, because our hope has to ultimately in God's word, and it has to ultimately be that we belong to a different kingdom, a different realm, and Jesus is coming back for us. So are you ready? Are you hoping in that? So we'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow. God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And remember, this is the day the Lord has made. I will to rejoice and be glad in it. God bless you, and we'll see you tomorrow.